What if I told you that one of the largest real estate companies on earth also happens to sell burgers? Sounds ridiculous, right? After all, when you think of McDonald's, you probably imagine golden fries, Big Macs, Happy Meals, and those giant golden arches visible from miles away. You don't think about commercial real estate. You don't think about land ownership. And you definitely don't think about one of the most brilliant business models ever created. But here's the shocking truth. McDonald's earns billions of dollars every year, and a huge part of its success has very little to do with hamburgers. In fact, some business experts have made a controversial claim. McDonald's isn't really in the food business. It's in the real estate business. And the burgers? They're just part of the system. So how did a simple burger restaurant transform into a global empire with tens of thousands of locations across more than 100 countries? How did it discover a business model so powerful that it helped create one of the most valuable brands in history? And what was the secret that turned a struggling milkshake machine salesman into one of the most influential businessmen of the 20th century? To answer those questions, we need to travel back to the 1950s. Because the real story of McDonald's isn't about food. It's about seeing an opportunity that everyone else missed. Class, gather around the whiteboard. Today, we're uncovering one of the greatest business secrets ever hidden in plain sight. The story begins in post-war America. The economy was booming. Cars were becoming common. Suburbs were expanding. Families were moving. And a new culture of convenience was emerging. Restaurants were everywhere, but most of them were slow. Customers waited for waitresses, orders took time, operations were inefficient. Then two brothers had an idea. Instead of treating food service like a traditional restaurant, why not treat it like a factory? Why not create a system where every burger was made the same way, every time, with maximum speed? Those brothers were Richard and Maurice McDonald. And what they built would eventually change the world. But here's the strange part. The McDonald brothers didn't become billionaires. The person who truly unlocked the empire was someone else entirely. A man named Ray Kroc. And when he first discovered their restaurant, he wasn't a famous entrepreneur. He was a struggling salesman looking for his next opportunity. What happened next would become one of the most important business stories ever told. The restaurant that shouldn't have existed. In 1954, Ray Kroc received an unusually large order. A small restaurant in California had ordered multiple milkshake machines. That immediately caught his attention. Most restaurants ordered one machine, maybe two, but this restaurant needed far more. Kroc was curious. Why would a single restaurant need so many machines? So he traveled to San Bernardino, California. What he saw stunned him. Customers lined up around the building. Orders were completed in seconds. Burgers, fries, and drinks moved through the kitchen like parts on an assembly line. The operation was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The McDonald brothers had created what they called the speedy service system. It eliminated waste, reduced menu complexity, increased efficiency, and dramatically lowered costs. For Kroc, this wasn't just a restaurant. It was a blueprint. He immediately realized that if this system could work in one location, it could work everywhere. Most people saw a successful burger stand. Kroc saw a national opportunity. Soon, he convinced the brothers to let him franchise the concept across America. And that's where the real journey began. But there was a problem. A very big problem. Despite rapid growth, the business model wasn't making Ray Kroc rich. In fact, he was struggling financially. And unless he discovered a solution, the McDonald's dream could collapse before it truly began. The franchising problem. At first, franchising looked like the perfect business. Sell licenses, collect fees, expand quickly. Simple. At least that's what Kroc thought. But reality was different. The profit margins were thin. Operational costs were high. Growth required constant investment. And many franchise owners ignored company standards. The business was expanding, but the money wasn't flowing. Kroc was trapped. He had built a fast-growing company that wasn't generating enough profit. Imagine building a massive ship only to discover it has a leak. The bigger it gets, the more dangerous the problem becomes. That's exactly what was happening. The faster McDonald's expanded, the more pressure Kroc faced. He needed a completely different strategy. A strategy that would transform McDonald's from a restaurant chain into something much bigger. Then, during a meeting with financial advisor Harry Sonneborn, a revolutionary idea emerged. An idea so powerful that it would completely change the future of the company. Sonneborn looked at the business and said something extraordinary. "You're not in the hamburger business. You're in the real estate business." At first glance, it sounded absurd. But that single sentence would become worth billions. The genius real estate strategy. Here's what most people don't realize. McDonald's doesn't simply allow franchisees to open restaurants. Instead, in many cases, McDonald's acquires or controls the land. Then it leases that land to franchise operators. Think about what that means. The franchise owner pays for the restaurant, the equipment, the employees, the day-to-day operations. But McDonald's controls the location, and location is everything. The company carefully selects high-traffic areas, busy intersections, growing suburbs, commercial hotspots, places where people naturally gather. Then, franchisees pay rent to McDonald's, not just franchise fees, rent. This changed everything. Suddenly, McDonald's wasn't relying solely on burger sales. It had created a second income stream, one that was stable, predictable, and incredibly scalable. Even if a franchise owner struggled, McDonald's still benefited from its control of valuable property. The company wasn't just selling food, it was building an empire of strategic locations. And as property values increased over time, the value of McDonald's holdings increased as well. The Golden Arches were becoming a giant real estate portfolio. But the brilliance of this system goes even deeper. Because real estate wasn't just generating revenue, it was generating control.